أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم قولوا عليه الصلاة والسلام. وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم عبد الله ورسوله أرسله ربه بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ألا وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. I bear witness that there is none worthy of our worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the seal of the prophets and the final messenger to all of humanity. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, there is none to misguide. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves to stray, there is none to guide aright. تكلمنا في الأسبوع الماضي عن ثقافة وأدب الاعتذار، وقلنا إنه ما فيش مانع، وهذا لا ينقص من قدر الإنسان إنه يعتذر للناس، فهذا ليس دليلا على الضعف ولكن دليل على العزة، وإنه الإنسان يفهم حقائق الأمور. So last week we gave a talk about the power of sorry, and that when a person makes a mistake, they shouldn't hide the mistake, or they shouldn't justify, or they shouldn't lie about the mistake. They should come out and say, yes, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. It is not a big deal. Because we are human beings, we are not perfect. We make mistakes day and night. And the hadith, كُلُّ بَنِي آدَمَ خَطَّاءٌ وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. All of humanity, human beings, make mistakes. We make mistakes. We are not angels. But the best among those who make mistakes is that they apologize and they try to mend their ways. So this is a concept that we need to have as Muslims, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran, وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُوا الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنزَغُ بَيْنَهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Isra, tell my believing servants to say what is right, Because shaitan is trying to incite hatred and hostility among them. So let's assume you did something wrong, and because of your ego, because of your pride, you didn't say sorry. One thing will lead to another, and there will be hostility between you and your brother, or between you and your wife, or between you and your husband and kids, and so on and so forth. Whereas you're going to have solved the whole thing by just saying, well, sorry, I made a mistake, khalas, forgive me, alhamdulillah. Last time I gave some examples from hadith that the angels apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment for not worshipping Him enough. And I gave the example of Adam alayhi salam and Hawa. They apologized to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what they did, eating from the tree. Yunus alayhi salam apologized to Allah for leaving his town without permission. Nuh alayhi salam apologized for asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the hikmah for not saving his son. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam apologized to Sawad radiallahu anhu before the battle of Badr. There's nothing wrong. If you say, well, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done better, there's nothing wrong. Who should we apologize to? Number one, we need to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because, as I said before, there are two rights in Islam. The rights of Allah and the rights of the people. The rights of Allah like ibadah, salah, siyam, hajj, and so on and so forth. And the rights of the people to treat them with dignity, with respect, with honesty, and so on and so forth. And sometimes we violate the rights of Allah and we violate the rights of the people. Some people don't keep the balance. Yes, when it comes to salah, ibadah, they're good. But when it comes to treating people, they are harsh, they are cruel, they are dishonest, they lie, they cheat. So there's no balance. Some people, mashallah, they're good, they're kind and generous and everything. But when it comes to ibadah, they don't care. They don't pray. Why don't you pray? Well, I treat people nicely, and I have a pure heart, I don't have to pray. I hear this from some people, right? If someone doesn't have to pray because they have a pure heart, then Muhammad ﷺ didn't have to do any ibadah at all, because no one had a better or a purer heart than him. But still he would stand at night in salah until his feet were swollen. And this is an authentic hadith, because he wanted to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are so many hadith, and we don't have the time to go into all these hadith, but this is the concept that we need to keep the balance between your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the relationship with the people. The 10 commandments in the Bible, they are repeated at least twice in the Quran. In Surah Isra, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, till the end of the ayat. And in Surah An'am, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عليكم ألا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا. So the Quranic commandments in both surahs, An'am and Isra, talk about two things. Worship Allah, don't commit shirk, and be good and nice to people. This is what Islam boils down to. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, those who have faith in Allah and do good. So this Islam, what is Islam is all about? Your relationship with Allah, ibadat, and your relationship with the people and the rest of His creation is called mu'amalat. This is what Islam is all about. So you have to keep the balance. So the first thing that we have to do is to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not doing the right thing. And I'll give you a few examples. Most of us, and I'm not making this up because this is what Allah says in the Quran, so it has to be the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that every time I shower my mercy and rahmah on people, I give them money, good health, they have a big house, a nice car, a good job, a good pay, they turn their back on me. They don't pray, they don't do ibadah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in their mind at all. But once something bad happens, like they lose a child, they get laid off, something bad happens to them, now they remember Allah and they go back to Him. So we need to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making your relationship with Allah just like the crisis line. You only call Him if you need Him, but if you think you don't need Him, you don't care. This is how people deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You only talk to Him if you need something from Him. I was a student one day, or in some point in my life, I'm still a student. Before the exams came, the final exams, you pray on time, you're crying, making dua to Allah. and inshallah after I succeed, I'll be praying in the masjid all the time, I'll give sadaqah, I'll do this. And as soon as the results come out and you pass, no salah on time, nothing. So you turn on your word with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't keep your promises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes, subhanallah, this is the reason why something bad happens to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not answer our dua to lift the hardship right away. Because Allah knows once He answers your dua, you get what you're asking for, you will turn your back on Him. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps the hardship for a longer time, you will be connected to Him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes to keep your company and to keep you connected with Him. This is the reason why the dua is not answered right away. Because you will just run away after the dua is answered. So we should apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not being grateful to Him, for remembering Him only in difficult times and forgetting Him in good times. We need to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for putting a lot of things in front of Him or ahead of Him. Sometimes as individuals, we put money before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like sometimes, everyone knows halal and haram. Everyone knows that there is a day of judgment, but still they do the haram and they put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala behind their backs. وَاتَّخَذْتُمُوهُ وَرَاءَكُمْ ظِهْرِيًّا. So they do the wrong, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in their mind. Some of us, they put culture before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some they put politics before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we have problems in Muslim societies. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should come first. In Surah Fatiha, which is a surah we recite 17 times every day in our namaz, the 5 daily salawat, 2 for Fajr, 4 for Dhuhr, 4 for Asr, 3 Maghrib, 4 Isha, we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone, you are the only one we worship. We don't worship the dollar, we don't worship the dunya, we don't worship the jobs. We worship you, you are the one we worship. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You are the only one we ask for help. You are the only one. So this is what we say in our salah, but sometimes we don't mean it. Because once we leave salah, we go back to dunya, we put Allah behind our backs. We need to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for pleasing people at the expense of our relationship with Allah. Sometimes we know something is wrong, but we will do it just to please some people and displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we don't care. So we need to apologize to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for doing this. And number 2, we need to apologize to ourselves for wronging ourselves. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. Because when you do something wrong, you wrong yourself. Because, for example, you don't do the right thing, you don't pray, you have money but you don't pay your zakah, you have money but you don't go for hajj, you wrong yourself. We know in Islam, when it comes to rights, there are the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yourself, your body has a right on you. The people have a right on you. Everyone heard the hadith, Salman radiallahu anhu في صحيح مسلم, أن سلمان رضي الله عنه رأى الدرداء مبتذلة، يعني هدومها مش نظيفة مش واخدة بالها من حالها يعني. فلما سألها إيش المشكلة قالت إنه زوجي أبو الدرداء ليس له حاجة في الدنيا. هو يصلي طول الليل وطول النهار صايم، مش قاعد في البيت، ما عرفش عنه حاجة ولا يهتم به، يعني ليس له حاجة به. فقال له سلمان رضي الله عنه يعني صلي في الليل شوية ونام شوية، راعي زوجتك وبعدين اخرج للشغل، وصوم شوية في النهار وفي أيام ما تصومش، يعني إن لبدنك عليك حقا ولربك عليك حقا ولزوجك عليك حقا فأعطي كل ذي حق حقا. So in this authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim, the wife of Abu Darda, she was not taking care of herself, she was in a bad shape. And Salman radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ made him the brother of Abu Darda after Hijrah to Medina. So Salman radiallahu anha saw her and he said, okay, what's the problem? What seems to be the problem? And she said, my husband Abu Darda, he prays the whole night, he doesn't sleep. And every day he is fasting, so he has no time for me. He's not taking care of his health. He just, spending all his life in ibadah. He doesn't have interest in dunya. So Salman radiallahu anhu came to Abu Darda and told him, you are not doing the right thing. Pray sometimes at night, but get some sleep. Fast sometimes, but break your fast some days and take care of your wife. Because Allah has rights on you, your wife has rights on you, and your body has rights on you. So give everyone their rights. وَجَاءَ إِلَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم فَقَالَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم صَدَقَ سَلْمَانٌ. When they came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and they told him the story, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, Salman is right. He has said the truth. And this is an authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim. So you have to take care of yourself. Some of us don't exercise. Some of us are workaholic. They work 2-3 jobs. I know you need to pay your bills and pay the rent and take care of the family. Take care of yourself physically, psychologically, spiritually, and so on and so forth. Some of the husbands, they need to apologize to their wives. I know you have a lot of commitments, but sometimes when you promise your family to take them out, you promise to come back from work at a certain time, sometimes the family and the wife and the kids, they are the last priority in our list. We do this all the time. And I don't exclude myself, because some things come between us and our families. And if I ask any one of us, what is the most important thing in your life? We will say without hesitation, my family and my kids. But when it comes to the real life, we put a lot of things ahead of our family and ahead of our kids. And we'll focus on this one day, inshallah. So if your wife waits for you for 1 hour, 2 hours, you're always late. If you promise them to take them out or to visit their family, your in-laws, and you never do, you need to apologize. And you need to give them some time. Again, as I said before, it is hard for some of us to apologize. This is a very difficult thing for us. The ego and the pride and so on and so forth. It stands between us and doing what is right. But again, as I said, there's nothing wrong if we apologize and if we do the right thing. Saying sorry will not make you small or weak in the eyes of your wife or your family. Someone who is 1,000,000 times better than me, Muhammad ﷺ, apologized. And these are the examples we gave last time. I remember the story of a brother. He said it's a true story. One day, he said something to his wife and she was not happy. He offended his wife. And those of you who are married, they know that on a monthly basis, the sisters go through this cycle and it affects them psychologically and physically. So when you see something or you hear something, just try to overlook, because they are not themselves this time of the month. They don't mean what they say. So don't take it personally. Because I do counseling all the time, just try to overlook and ignore until these days pass and she will back to herself or her normal self, then everything will be smooth. So the wife said something and the husband said something, he offended his wife and he was very aggressive. He said something terrible and the wife was offended. The whole day she was asking for apology and he said, no, I'm a man, I should not apologize. You know our people, sometimes we come from back home, we have some cultural baggage that a man should not apologize to his wife, even if she is right. So he said, no, I'm not gonna say it. And for 2 days she was begging him to apologize, so I'll forgive you. He said no. So in the morning, he felt sorry because she was crying, and he left a piece of paper on the pillow and he left for his work. And on the piece of paper he said, I'm sorry. When he came back from work and she said, you should have said sorry, he said, no, writing it is good enough. I'm not saying I'm sorry, it is in writing. Khalas, this is good enough for me. 2 days later, he had to travel to Vancouver. There was a big, the company was having a meeting there, and he had to catch a flight 5 in the morning from the airport here. And so he told his wife, I don't trust my phone, wake me up at 5 or I will miss my flight. She said, okay, no problem, we miss on here. So in the morning, he woke up, not at 5, he woke up at 10:30 in the morning. He looked for his wife everywhere, nowhere to be found. She left the house with the kids. He looked and looked and looked, and on his pillow, he found the same piece of paper that says, I'm sorry, on the back. And on this back, she wrote for him, it's 5, wake up. She didn't say it, she wrote it. And when he phoned her later, she said, well, I wrote it, it is good enough. Right? You should have said sorry so I would wake you up. So you shouldn't have the pride to say sorry if you make a mistake. Also, the wives should apologize to their husbands if they do something wrong. And as I said, we are not perfect. We make mistakes all the time. So you shouldn't be carried away by pride if you burn the food, and it happens sometimes. You're talking on the phone, you're talking to your mom on Facebook back home, and I know you're talking to your mom, talking about what happens, and you don't know how to boil an egg, how do I do it, and things, and you get busy with the kids and stuff. Things happen. So say sorry, inshallah, next time I'll pay more attention, no problem. We need to apologize for asking our husbands for things that are beyond their means. Wallahi, I hear stories, people come to me for counseling. Husbands have a lot of responsibilities. They have to take care of their families, they have to pay for the kids' education, if they go to private schools, and the bills, and the rent, and the car, and the insurance, and it's crazy here. Especially in the GTA area, where the prices are going up, the rent and the bills and everything. SubhanAllah, it's very difficult. And these husbands, they have also responsibility towards their families back home. Their moms, their dads, they have to, provide for them. And it gets very difficult. So don't ask them for things that are beyond their means. Children need to apologize to their parents. Because sometimes, once we graduate, we have a job, and we have our own families, sometimes we forget about our parents back home, especially in their old age. And I hear stories all the time. And I always ask myself, why is it easy for one mother to take care of 5, 6 kids when they were young, and it becomes difficult for these 5, 6 kids to take care of their mother when their mother is old? So one is taking care of 5, 6 when they're young, but these 5, 6, when they grow older, they fail to take care of one person, their mom. What is going on here? I remember one sister came to me one time and she said, she doesn't know how to reach her mom back home because she has been here for 7 years. She never spoke to her mom. She never communicated with her mom, nothing. And she said, I don't know how to do it. I said, do they have internet? No. Phone? No. Can you send a letter? No, they can't read. So I said, you need to be able to communicate with your mom and dad. Go visit them. I can't. I don't have enough money. So I said, you have to do your best to be able to reach them and talk to them and check on them. She said, I can't. I said, okay, I'll give you one example. What if your mom dies and she leaves you $100,000? Would you be able to reach your mom? She said, yes, because I need to get the money. I said, it's the same way. You need to do your best due diligence to be able to communicate with your mom. It is doable, just like in case you want to get money from them. The parents need to apologize to their kids because sometimes we make decisions for them and we don't ask them for their mashura, even if they're old. Sometimes someone is 20, 25, and this is one thing we know for sure, that no matter how old your kids are, in your eyes they are children. So we need to stop that mentality. You need to talk to them. The Prophet ﷺ, from authentic hadith, when he was talking to Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, the children in the family, even when they were 5 years old, they will talk to them like grown-ups. Like one time in authentic hadith, Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu was walking with the Prophet ﷺ, and they passed by Baytul Mal. There were dates for the poor, and Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu took one date and he put it in his mouth, and the Prophet ﷺ said, يعني اتركها أما علمت أننا لا نأكل الصدقة. The Prophet ﷺ took it from his mouth and he told him, don't you know that Ahlul Bayt, the Ashraf, the blessed family of Muhammad ﷺ, don't you know that we don't eat charity from the people? And he took it out and he put it to the side. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us beneficial knowledge and give us the best in this life and the best in the life to come. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله ربه رحمة للعالمين. So as I said, Islamically, there's nothing wrong if we apologize. We hurt a lot of people, intentionally or unintentionally. Our friends, the doctor with his patients. Mistakes happen all the time. The lawyers, the teachers, they may say something wrong. The fuqaha, the scholars, maybe they will give a wrong fatwa because they don't have all the details or they don't know the right answer. There is nothing wrong Islamically if you say, I made a mistake and this is the right answer. There's nothing wrong Islamically. If you hurt someone, then you can talk to them and apologize. But say for example, you spoke about someone behind their backs, or some of the ulama, because some of us, we go to YouTube, we watch videos, there are many scholars out there, real scholars. I'm not talking about people who pretend to be scholars, but real scholars. And you read comments about them. They say, well, this sheikh is the Dajjal, this sheikh is Musaylam al-Khattab, and people who don't have knowledge criticizing and defaming people with knowledge. If you are not able to reach them and apologize to them, at least tell the people that you spoke to that you were wrong and you have to change the wrong that you have done. Sometimes you speak about a friend behind their backs, and we know that we as human beings, sometimes it is easy for us to forgive but not to forget. It is easy for a lot of us to forgive but not to forget. So this is why if you spoke about someone behind their backs, maybe it is a better idea to talk to the people that you smeared the brother or the sister before and you change what you said, rather than go into the brother and the sister and telling them, well, I said this about you and that, because most likely they would not forget what you have done to them. If you took some money from someone behind their backs, just give it back to them the same way you took it. I remember last week after I gave the khutbah about someone and I said someone might hit your car and they run, and a brother came to me and said, well, a couple of weeks ago I was leaving the masjid after Jummah, I hit someone's car and I didn't stop because I was late for work. And he said, if you know the person that I hit his car, just let me know, inshallah, and he will cover the expenses. So if you are here, come forward and let me know, and the brother, inshallah, will take care of it. As I said, it is difficult for people to apologize. So when they come forward and they apologize to you, don't make it difficult for them, because you will be scratching their dignity. Make it easy for them. The Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, it's in Sahih Muslim, ما نقص مال من صدقة وما زاد الله عبدا بعفو إلا عزا. The Prophet ﷺ said that sadaqah will not diminish from your money. And if you forgive those who apologize to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor you and He will elevate you. And the more you are humble with the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor more, according to this hadith. There are so many hadith in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ where he ﷺ forgave people who apologize. The people of Mecca, after so many years of persecution, they said, Ya Rasulullah, you are the best, you are from the best family, forgive us, and he forgave them. The man who urinated in the masjid, he apologized and the Prophet ﷺ forgave him. And so on and so forth. Yusuf alayhi salam, in Surah Yusuf, his brothers abused him. They tried to kill him. He was sold into slavery. He was thrown into jail. And at the end, when they apologized, he forgave them. وَالصَّفْحِ الْجَمِيلِ, after he forgave them, and he is counting the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on him. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذَا خْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِنَ الْبَدُوِ. He's talking about the favors of Allah. He saved him from the prison. He brought his family back to him. He didn't say, and Allah saved me from my brothers who tried to kill me. Why? Because Yusuf alayhi salam is al-Karim, ibn al-Karim. Because it is not honorable that when you forgive someone, that you remind them of the mistake they did to you. And this is why Yusuf alayhi salam didn't mention the fault of his brothers after he forgave them. Al-Karim ibn al-Karim. This is a safh al-jameel, that you don't remind people of what they did before to you. You don't remind your wife, oh, last year you burned the food 10 times. And you don't remind your husband, you always come late from work. You don't love me. Things like this. Because you keep reminding people, you will ruin the relationship. The last thing I want to say is, sometimes people do things unintentionally and we don't demand an apology. We need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And you don't demand an apology because sometimes people do things that don't mean to harm you or offend you, but this is the way you see it. Maybe you ask for an explanation first before you ask for an apology. One time, it's a true story, one brother moved to a city and he came to the masjid for the first time and he was talking to people on Facebook, do you know someone? I need someone to guide me in the city and stuff. So after Salah, the brother met the brothers and they were leaving and he got into his car and so what happened, actually that what happened, they met in front of the masjid and he was coming inside the masjid, and his car, when he lowered the window, there was a lot of music like Michael Jackson and, you know, pop. So the people, when he came, they were saying, well, this is not a good brother. They were jumping to conclusions. And when they spoke to him, they realized that the brother was deaf. And he borrowed his brother's car. His brother plays a lot of music in his car. He just borrowed his car. When he parked in front of the masjid, the music was going on and he didn't know, he didn't hear anything. So these brothers, they were criticizing him without knowing that he was deaf. But when he came and he, you know, made sign language to them, they understood, yes, we were wrong. We were jumping to conclusions. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the best in this life and the best in the life to come. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us sincerity in everything we say and do. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the power and the courage to apologize if we make a mistake. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلي اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.